I'm checking to see whether the pinion drive is working. So when I spin the armature, the sprocket turns, which means everything is inside is okay. And I've actually drained the oil, put new oil inside it, cleaned out the stuff that was in there. It was all gooky, and I know this part is good. I'm now going to mount the brush carrier plate onto the housing. And before I took it off, I placed a mark on this plate that aligned with a mark on the housing, because you want to make sure that the two holes for the long through screws align with holes in the housing itself. So I'm going to put them back, and these then get screwed onto the pickups. This is how I install the brushes into the holder. So here's the brush, and I've screwed it into the mount, and this is the 4 mm times 4 mm by 0.7 mm pitch screw. This is the holder, and this is the spring that holds the brush against the commutator segment. That's the spring. So what we want to do first is get a hook and pull that spring up and let it rest on the side over here. Take the brush. This is the top with the slot for the spring to sit on. That slot, you can see it clearly now. Slide that in. And then put the spring on. And that's what the armature looks like when it's fully installed, with the brushes running on the commutator segments. You can see the spring sitting in the slot on the brush standing proud of the holder, and the M4 by 0.7 screw that holds the wire. After you mount all the brushes and you put the springs on, make sure that you can still turn the armature, and that it spins freely, and none of the bushes or the wires are binding. I'm now going to tighten this, and I think we'll be all set. And now to assemble the other end, I take the cap, I slide this long screw in with the flat and spring washer at the other end. I slide the insulating covers on it. Align these two holes, this and this, with this. And tap it into place to get the clutch in. A couple of taps with a rubber mallet, and it seats all the way around. And now we just tighten this up, and we go back to the bike. So I've tightened down all the bolts, the screws, and I want to do one last test to make sure that the armature is spinning freely. This only turns one direction, so I've marked it out here. And so let's test this. Yep, spins freely. Let's test it with the battery on. When I first tested this, all I got was this thing spinning very, very slowly, and then smoke coming out of the battery connection. So I very quickly stopped it, disconnected the power, and tried to figure out what was going wrong. what ended up happening is that the contacts, the wire tabs for the brushes, the 4 wire tabs, one of them was touching this cap. And I think there was also a wire that was touching, one of the brush pickup wires was touching the cap, and that was shorting out the whole thing. So I fixed that, made sure that it was clear of the cap, gave this a couple of taps with a hammer, and then put it all back together. And so now I'm going to test this and see whether the engine spins. So I've connected up a battery to the input on the starter, and there we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. That works really well. And so we've got a functioning Morini 3.5 starter motor. The end. And now for the final test. Will it turn the engine over? Perfect. Success.